You could lose everything you've worked for, your money, your home, even precious time with your kids. In this video I am going to expose the divorce settlement trap that ruin lives, so stick around because I tell you how to protect yourself from them. Think your divorce lawyer is protecting you? Think again. Most divorce settlements aren't written to protect you, they're written to move the process forward as quickly as possible, even if it means you get the short end of the deal. Everyone tells you divorce is about fairness, about splitting things down the middle. But here's the brutal truth. What's written in those papers can lock you into years of financial stress, emotional battles, and mistakes you can never undo. I've seen people sign away their retirement without realizing it. I've seen parents lose custody rights they never thought they'd give up. And I've seen mountains of hidden debt passed quietly from one spouse to the other, all because nobody warned them what was really inside the fine print. And here's the kicker, the traps aren't buried deep in legal jargon. They're sitting right there, in plain sight, disguised as standard terms. If you're going through a divorce, you need to know what they are, because once you sign, it's almost impossible to take it back. So let's break down the hidden traps in divorce settlements, the ones that could destroy your future if you miss them. Stay with me until the end, because the last trap I'll reveal is the one almost nobody sees coming. Mistake 1, believing 50/50ths is always fair. Let's start with one of the biggest myths in divorce, and one of the most dangerous traps you can fall into, the idea that divorce settlements are always 50/50. You've probably heard it 100 times. Friends, family, even TV shows love to say, "Don't worry, you'll just split everything down the middle." Sounds simple, right? Half for you, half for them, clean break. But here's the truth, and this is something the American Bar Association makes very clear, courts in most states don't actually work on a strict 50/50 basis. Instead, they follow something called equitable distribution. And equitable doesn't mean equal. It means fair. And fair depends on a whole list of factors you may not even be thinking about right now. So what do judges actually look at when dividing assets? Here are a few examples. 1. Income differences. If one spouse makes significantly more than the other, that can tilt the balance. 2. Child custody. The parent who has primary custody of the kids may be awarded more resources to support them. 3. Debts and contributions. Did one spouse carry most of the financial weight, or stay home to raise the kids while the other built a career? Both of those contributions count in the eyes of the court. That's why what looks equal on paper might actually be anything but equal once you live it day to day. And I get it. You might be thinking, I just want this over with. If it's half and half, fine, I'll sign it. But here's the trap, if you assume 50/50 is guaranteed, you might walk away with far less than you deserve. Or worse, you could end up agreeing to terms that look even, but in reality, they put you at a major disadvantage. Let me give you a scenario. Imagine you and your spouse own a house, 2 cars, and have some savings. On the surface, a 50/50th split might mean, you keep one car, they keep the other, you split the savings, and you sell the house. Done, right? Not so fast. What if one car is worth $30,000 and the other barely runs? What if the house has equity, but it also has hidden repair costs or a giant mortgage attached to it? Suddenly, your equal half doesn't look so equal anymore. And here's another common example, retirement accounts. A 401k or pension might be valued at, say, $200,000. You might think, okay, they get half, I get half. But without a proper court order, you could lose tens of thousands to taxes or penalties, while your ex walks away with their share untouched. Again, not fair. Not equal. And once you sign, it's locked in. This is why rushing is so dangerous. Divorce lawyers and courts may talk about equitable distribution like it's straightforward, but the reality is messy. Assets aren't just numbers on a page, they carry hidden costs, future implications, and emotional weight. And here's something else most people don't realize, judges also consider future earning potential. So if one spouse has a high-paying career path and the other has been out of the workforce raising kids, that imbalance could completely change how assets are divided. Bottom line. Equal on paper doesn't mean fair in life. So here's what you need to do, don't sign anything assuming 50/50 is automatic. Ask questions. Push for clarity. Get real valuations on property, cars, retirement accounts, and even debts. Look at not just today's numbers, but tomorrow's reality. I know it's overwhelming. I know you just want to move on. But this is one of the biggest financial decisions of your entire life. If you rush it, the mistake could follow you for decades. And if you think money is the only landmine, think again. Because the next trap doesn't just hit your wallet, it can quietly dictate how much time you actually get with your kids. Let's talk about custody agreements, and why one wrong line in your settlement could box you in for years. If this opened your eyes, hit that subscribe button, because the next mistakes I'm about to show you are even bigger traps most people never see coming. Mistake 2, custody clauses that box you in. Let's talk about the part of divorce that cuts deeper than money, custody. I know custody battles are painful. Nobody goes into divorce wanting to fight over time with their kids. And when you're already exhausted from lawyers, paperwork, and emotional stress, it's tempting to just agree to a parenting plan so you can finally move forward. But here's the truth most parents never hear: once you sign a custody agreement, courts rarely let you go back and change it. That's not me saying it, that's straight from state family court guidelines across the country. Judges don't want families bouncing in and out of court every time circumstances shift. They want stability for the child. Which means once it's in writing, you're often stuck with it unless there's a major, life-changing event. So what does that actually mean? What counts as a major change in circumstances? Think about things like one parent relocating to another state or country. A serious decline in a parent's ability to care for the child, like substance abuse or neglect. Major health issues that affect caregiving. Those are big, rare situations. But here's the catch: things like work schedule changes, school conflicts, or simply realizing your agreement doesn't work for your family anymore. Those usually don't count. The court expects you to live with the agreement you signed. And this is where the trap catches so many parents. Out of guilt, exhaustion, or pressure, they agree to vague or restrictive visitation terms just to keep the peace. They think, we'll work it out later. We're reasonable people. But later, when the other parent insists on sticking to the exact wording of the agreement, whether it's alternating weekends, limited holidays, or strict pickup times, you may find yourself boxed into a schedule that gives you far less time with your child than you ever imagined. And because it's written into the settlement, the court will back it up. Let me give you a real-world scenario. Say you agree to a visitation schedule of every other weekend and one night during the week. At the time, it feels fair, and you think you'll negotiate more time later. But once it's signed, that's the schedule. Maybe your child grows older and wants to spend more time with you, or your work schedule shifts so you're available more often. Doesn't matter. Unless there's a legal reason to reopen the case, the court will hold you to that original plan. Or take holidays. If you agree to split major holidays, one parent gets Thanksgiving, the other gets Christmas, but you don't spell out details like travel, extended family visits, or alternating years, you may find yourself missing entire traditions because you signed a vague clause. And here's the hardest part: your child feels the effects. Kids thrive on routine, stability, and time with both parents. A poorly written or rushed agreement doesn't just hurt you, it can disrupt their entire sense of normalcy. I know you want to avoid conflict. I know it feels easier to just give in so you can get the divorce over with. But custody isn't something you compromise on just to keep the peace. This is about your child's future, and your relationship with them. So before you sign, stop and ask, does this agreement protect my child's best interests and my long-term relationship with them? Not just today, not just while emotions are raw, but years from now, when life has shifted, when they're in school, when they're teenagers, when routines are different. Will this agreement still work then? Because once the ink is dry, going back to court isn't just emotionally draining, it's legally uphill, and often unsuccessful. So don't rush. Don't let guilt or fatigue push you into an agreement you'll regret for years. Get clear. Get specific. Think long-term. And if you think custody is tough, wait until you hear what happens when hidden debts are buried inside your settlement. Because unlike custody, where the pain is emotional, debt can quietly follow you for decades, and the court won't care that it wasn't even yours to begin with. Mistake 3, ignoring marital debt. Everyone walks into divorce thinking about assets, the house, the cars, the retirement funds. But almost nobody thinks about the other side of the coin, debt. And that's where one of the most devastating traps hides. Here's what you need to know: under U.S. family law, marital debt is usually treated just like marital assets. That means any debt, credit cards, personal loans, even medical bills, taken on during the marriage can be split between you and your spouse. Now, here's the shocker: it doesn't matter if your name isn't on the account. If the debt was created while you were legally married, a judge can assign part of it to you. So your spouse could have racked up thousands on credit cards you never touched, and suddenly, you're legally responsible. And it gets worse. Even if your divorce decree says your ex is responsible for paying a certain debt, creditors don't care. They weren't part of your divorce. If your name is attached to that loan or credit card, the bank can still come after you if your ex misses a single payment. Imagine thinking you're free, only to get a collection notice years later for a debt you didn't create. This is where many people make the critical mistake: they assume their lawyer will automatically protect them from debt liability. But the truth? Some lawyers focus so much on dividing assets quickly that debt gets brushed aside, hidden in the fine print of your settlement. And that oversight can cost you for years. Picture this: you walk away thinking you've secured the house, or your fair share of savings. But 3 years later, your credit score is ruined because your ex stopped paying a joint loan, and the collectors are hounding you instead. So how do you protect yourself? First, demand a full accounting of all marital debts before you sign anything. That means pulling credit reports, digging into statements, and confirming balances. Don't just take your spouse's word for it. Second, get crystal clear language in your divorce settlement. Specify who pays what, and if possible, require debts to be refinanced into the responsible party's name. Because here's the bottom line: divorce isn't just about dividing what you have. It's about dividing what you owe. Ignore that fact, and you could be chained to someone else's mistakes long after you've tried to move on. But debt is only part of the financial trap. The next pitfall isn't about what you owe today, it's about what you'll keep paying, year after year. And that's alimony. Have you or someone you know ever been blindsided by hidden debt in divorce? Drop your story in the comments. You never know who your experience might help. Mistake 4: overlooking how alimony really works. When most people hear the word alimony, they picture lifetime payments, one spouse writing a check to the other forever. But here's the reality: in today's legal landscape, that's rarely the case. According to the American Bar Association, many states have shifted away from permanent alimony. Instead, courts focus on something called rehabilitative support, short-term payments designed to help the lower-earning spouse transition into financial independence. Sounds fair, right? But here's where the trap lies. If you walk into negotiations with the wrong assumptions, you could end up with an agreement that drains you, or leaves you struggling, for years. Here's how it happens: alimony isn't calculated with one universal formula. Each state sets its own rules, and judges have wide discretion. That means what you end up paying, or receiving, depends on factors like the length of the marriage, the income gap, and even the lifestyle you maintained while together. But if you sign off on terms that don't reflect your actual financial reality, you're setting yourself up for disaster. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone earning $80,000 a year, but their spouse's lawyer convinces them to agree to support payments as if they earned $100,000. On paper, it doesn't seem like much, but in practice, that's thousands of dollars every single year, money that could have gone toward your kids, your rent, or your future. And once it's in writing, courts rarely modify alimony unless there's a major change in circumstances, like job loss or serious illness. Otherwise, you're stuck. And it's not just about overpaying. For lower-earning spouses, signing a weak alimony agreement can mean walking away without the financial bridge you actually need. Maybe you left the workforce to raise kids, or supported your spouse while they built their career. If your settlement doesn't recognize that sacrifice, you could find yourself scrambling to make ends meet, without the resources to get back on your feet. Now, I know this part of divorce negotiations is deeply uncomfortable. Nobody wants to argue about money with someone they once loved. Fear, guilt, or even a desire to just get it over with often lead people to accept unfair terms. But here's the hard truth: those emotions fade. The financial consequences of your agreement don't. That's why before you sign anything, you need to step back and ask, does this reflect reality? Can I actually afford these payments month after month? Or if I'm receiving alimony, is it enough to realistically cover my transition back into independence? Because here's the bottom line, alimony isn't about punishing one spouse or rewarding the other. It's about fairness. And fairness only happens when the numbers truly reflect the life you're living now, not the assumptions, guilt, or pressure of the past. But don't breathe a sigh of relief just yet. If you thought alimony was the last financial landmine, think again. The most dangerous trap of all doesn't hit your paycheck today, it strikes at your future. And it's hiding inside your retirement accounts. And if you think retirement is complicated, just wait until you see the hidden traps buried in the fine print of your divorce paperwork. I did a whole video exposing those clauses, I'll show you how to find it at the end. Mistake 5, forgetting retirement accounts. Of all the financial traps in divorce, this one destroys more futures than almost anything else. Retirement accounts, your 401k, your IRA, your pension, these aren't just numbers on paper. They represent years, sometimes decades, of hard work. And here's the reality, in most divorces, they're considered marital assets. That means they're on the table, just like your house or your car. But here's the insider truth most people miss, dividing retirement accounts isn't as simple as splitting a bank account. If you cash out too early, or transfer money the wrong way, you could get hit with massive taxes and penalties. And in some cases, you could even lose your rightful share entirely. That's where something called a Qualified Domestic Relations Order, or QDRO, comes in. This is a special court order that tells your retirement plan how to legally split the funds without triggering taxes or early withdrawal fees. Without it, even if your divorce papers say you're entitled to part of your spouse's 401k, the plan administrator doesn't have to honor it. No QDRO, no payout. Let me paint the picture. Imagine you were married for 20 years, and during that time, your spouse built up a $500,000 pension. On paper, you're entitled to a portion of it. But because you didn't get the QDRO filed, maybe your lawyer rushed the process, maybe you just wanted it over with, years later, when your spouse retires, you realize you get nothing. The court settlement means little if the retirement account itself never got the proper order. And it's not just about missing out. If you try to divide an account without a QDRO and take a direct payout, the IRS treats it as income. That means you could lose 20, 30, even 40% of that money overnight to taxes and penalties. Money that was supposed to secure your future, gone in an instant. Here's another hidden layer, not all retirement assets are equal. A pension, for example, can be worth far more in the long run than a 401k with the same balance. Why? Because pensions often pay a guaranteed monthly income for life. If you don't carefully evaluate that value during your divorce, you could end up trading away long-term stability for short-term cash, a mistake that's almost impossible to fix later. And let's not forget Social Security benefits. If your marriage lasted at least 10 years, you may be eligible to claim benefits based on your ex-spouse's record, which could boost your retirement income significantly. Many people never even realize this until it's too late. So why do so many people overlook this? Simple, by the time they get to dividing retirement accounts, they're exhausted. They just want the fight to end. They'll say, fine, you keep your 401k, I'll keep the house. But here's the trap, houses lose value, repairs drain your cash, and one market crash can wipe out your equity. Retirement accounts, on the other hand, keep growing if you protect them. That's why this mistake is so devastating. You're not just risking today's balance, you're risking your entire future. Your ability to retire, to live comfortably, to avoid working until the day you die. So before you sign anything, ask yourself. 1. Has a QDRO been filed for every retirement account? 2. Am I trading away long-term security for short-term relief? 3. Do I really understand the future value of what I'm giving up, or what I'm entitled to? Because here's the truth, your retirement accounts may be the single most valuable asset in your divorce. And once you walk away from them, you don't get a second chance. Which brings us to the final takeaway, the big lesson you need to hear before you sign a single page of your divorce settlement. Here's the bottom line, divorce settlements aren't about being fair. They're about what you agree to on paper. And once that ink is dry, those words control your future, your money, your time with your kids, even your retirement. Think about what we've just uncovered. 1. Believing 50-50 is always fair can leave you with far less than you deserve. 2. Custody clauses can quietly box you into years of limited time with your kids. 3. Marital debt you never created can still haunt you long after the divorce. For alimony agreements, if not negotiated carefully, can drain your income or leave you undersupported. 5. And ignoring retirement accounts. That one mistake alone can destroy the future you worked decades to build. This is why you never, and I mean never, sign a settlement without understanding the long-term consequences. Because divorce isn't just about ending a marriage. It's about protecting the rest of your life. I know this process is painful. I know some days you just want it over with. But here's the truth nobody tells you: if you take the time now to recognize the traps, you can walk away with your future intact, not destroyed. And if you want to take this even deeper, go watch my previous video. In it, I break down the hidden clauses buried inside divorce papers, the ones most lawyers will never warn you about, and how they could cost you everything. If this video opened your eyes, that one will show you just how far the rabbit hole goes. If this video helped you see divorce differently, give it a like and subscribe for more straight-to-the-point advice. And tell me in the comments which mistake hit hardest for you. I read every single one. Disclaimer: this video is for informational purposes only and is not legal advice. Always consult a licensed attorney in your state.